Telesur English. I'm Carla Gonzalez. Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza participated in a solidarity meeting Thursday evening at the People's Forum in New York to discuss the U.S.
We've been formally for 3 years, and you have a big debate, this Mueller thing, and had intervention from the government of the United States for 20 years, not during the electoral campaigns. Every single day, every single week, every single act, every single second. Single day.
Venezuela's
properties, our people can $30 billion from us. They have taken billions of dollars all over the place in bank accounts. They have taken our consular building here in New York. They also took food. They have forbid the intervention in other. They are also breaking even the Charter of the Organization of American States at Article 19 to apply that political benefits.
And those who attended the meeting showed their solidarity with the Venezuelan people and reaffirmed their commitment to the Bolivarian Revolution.
From the United States, we send a strong message of solidarity, understanding that the sanctions that the United States an attack, that the war that has been assembled by the government of the United States is not an attack that has been supported by the North American people, since social movements and poor people understand that the only ones who are suffering the wounds, that has solidarity with the whole world. Here from where I am, south of the Bronx, we receive support from the Bolivarian Revolution.
Arreaza also spoke at the UN headquarters in New York. He said the economic war on his country is a criminal act that is hurting ordinary people.
And which have effectively had consequences, humane consequences, in lives, in suffering. And we will explain on the basis of this information. You know that this started with President Barack Obama, who signed the executive order on 8 March 2015. Who would think to attack the treasury, the central bank of a country? So it cannot fulfill with importation of goods and services to fulfill the needs of the population. It is, as what Mr. Abrams said, I have said it publicly, that now the coup has failed. They are going for the economic collapse of our nation. But what about the kids, the children, patients with HIV, with chemotherapy, with dialysis? What about surgeries that have to be suspended? I leave this here for the reflection.
Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez has strongly condemned the latest U.S. sanctions against his country. Our correspondent in Havana, Alien Fernandez, has more.
This Thursday, Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez strongly rejected the recent sanctions imposed by the United States on the country. He said 5 Cuban companies have been included in a list of over 200 unilaterally sanctioned companies by the Trump administration. Rodriguez also said the U.S. foreign policy poses a real threat to not only Cuba, but the whole of the Latin American and Caribbean region. He is referring to the recent statements of U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton and some congressmen of Cuban origin who are pushing for an anti-Cuban agenda in the country. Regarding Venezuela, Rodriguez explained that the 20,000 Cubans stationed in the country are mostly health officials who are working in medical and social security programs. Cuba's foreign minister said the U.S.'s measures are damaging relations between the two countries and will likely lead to further isolation.
Rosalín Fernandez from Cuba. Protesters in Sudan have gathered for what they called a million-strong march. Protesters gather outside the army headquarters in Khartoum, many coming by train from various cities across the country. Demonstrators continue to demand a civilian rule following the ousting of President Omar al-Bashir. And more than 100 Supreme Court judges also marched demanding for a civilian government to be formed. The judges marched from the Supreme Court to the Ministry of Defense headquarters, where thousands of protesters are camping since April 6. This is the first time judges participate in a protest since 1989. Meanwhile, 3 generals of the ruling Transitional Military Council have presented their resignations. This came after protest leaders and the Military Council met for talks. And the ousting of President al-Bashir ended the heavy censorship of graffiti art by the government. Graffiti artists are once again picking up their painting brushes to create murals and drawings dedicated to the protests that led to the fall of al-Bashir.
I never believed I would be able to draw in front of the army quarters, but alhamdulillah, thanks to this revolution, now we're able to have our freedom of speech with no fear, and the army are with us, and we're able to say whatever we have to say.
Various social movements in Colombia joined a national strike on Thursday to oppose government policies. Our correspondent, Tatiana Portela, has the details.
We are here in the center of Bogota, where various social movements like campesinos, workers' unions, and students, among others, have gathered for a national strike, demanding that the president meet all the agreements. But to know more about this, we are with Iberto Diaz, member of FENSUAGRO. Iberto, what are your demands for the president?
Today we have gathered here to protest against the National Plan of Development that ignores the campesinos and pretends to build reforms against workers, campesinos, and public education. We are also mobilizing for the right to live, since murders are something common now. These are the main reasons why we have decided to go on this national strike.
If the president doesn't listen to your demands, what are you going to do?
Here there are more than 25 departments where various social movements are mobilizing in all the country. Campesinos have been demonstrating in Putumayo, Nariño, and in the coast. We are showing our discomfort and call for unity. We call for the murders of social leaders to stop, but we also are in defense of the peace agreement that now the government wants to destroy. We call on the Colombian people to mobilize and that these strikes becomes the voice of the people and the call to build a real democracy and social justice.
Supporters of the South African leftist party Economic Freedom Fighters are celebrating Red Friday across the country. The party is seeking to build support. The political created in 2000 and Shibambu is also speaking at the Nelson Mandela Bay Land and Jobs March. Is also traveling of Ottosdal in the northwest. He asked the people to vote for a government with a plan. We have more stories coming up.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that form the world today. On Monday.
Welcome back. Officers of Chile's Special Police Force have reportedly detained a man fled to university grounds, but police officers followed them. Students are rejecting the government policies regarding education, especially the safe classroom policy and the growing privatization of universities. Our correspondent, Paola Dragnich, has the details from Santiago.
College and high school students are taking part in the first protest against the Safe Classroom law that allows the school principals to expel students in case the authorities can prove they have broken the school without education. To tell
of education sector. 27,000 students had to drop out since the only to continue studying. Marching.
hospital will remain closed until the demonstration is over. The students are worried they will be repressed. We will keep you updated.
Leaders in Brazil have a session in the Senate. Authorities are there to discuss land rights and the chamber's role in the protection of the environment. They are trying to defend harvests on the sidelines of an annual 3-day-long. Meanwhile, the Congress is growing. Building under the watchful eyes of riot police. Apart from meeting, also hope to meet with the Supreme Court to push for greater protection of
setbacks they have achieved with the Constitution of 19 attacks. There is a campaign of hatred against indigenous people.
Indigenous people, 100 demarcated territories across the country for their exclusive use. Access by outsiders is strictly regulated. But President Bolsonaro vowed to take control of their lands. And as the United States looks to further grow its presence in Latin America, it announced it will give Ecuador and training. The deal was discussed with the Ecuadorian defense minister.
To host our most long-standing naval exercise next year, UNITAS.
New measures to control. It also Macri's chances in Buenos Aires.
As the measures have had very little effect, part of a political strategy. The president's chances of real traditional allies in the banking sector, who have always supported him, seem to be going along with these measures. There's also a lack of confidence abroad, with Argentina's country risk rating climbing to almost 1,000 points. The stock market answers or new policies to respond to this.
Rule after the new revelations regarding the Odebrecht corruption. Citizens say they are disgusted given by the company's former head in the country.
Although Peruvians already sense it, now we have certainty. We really know, including the amount of money, and we're frightened to be able to learn something from this.
He became embedded in power and was practically managing politics in Peru.
And experts say Peru is still far behind in battling corruption. Journalist Rodrich says the country and that the testimony has confirmed information Odebrecht.
We've already got maybe 4 years, at least 3 years of accusations. But up to now, not one person did, not one investigations. To understand the other side, that of the country is experiencing at this crossroad.
With many cases hold at court, and the alleged culprit remains free despite evidence. Evidence was passed in 2012, yet more than half suffer from abuse. The Latin American and Caribbean Climate Week examples of in the region that are reducing emissions and helping communities adapt. The tone for the UN Climate Action Summit in New York. The implementation of the critics and the media's search reportedly with a warrant. Radio Jagriti to obtain recordings.
Richards and others feel that the Commissioner of Police is being seen too much in the media. He loves the media. That contacts me. I get over 50. I am paying the price for being. And I will lose. Umati Laida and the other. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, I thank you.
Members of the media, the Commissioner.
The life moments that present moments that you can live in. Telesur documentaries. Only on Telesur.
Organizers of the event later said over 70 teachers were hospitalized, with many beaten by batons during the protest. Teachers on temporary contracts launched a strike last month and have held major demonstrations to press their demands.